Alright guys, welcome to RC Mojo. This week we're going to have a quick look at some carbon upgrades for the Tamita XV01. Then we're going to have a bit of a medical story time. It's only going to be a super quick look at the upgrades. I want to introduce them properly when we get going with the build, so for now they're just going to stay in the packets. First up, to replace the stock plastic tub, we've got a carbon chassis kit. It's got a super solid main plate with a thin upper deck. There's also some steering links and some sort of spacer. It's hard to tell if it really is carbon fibre of course, but it does feel particularly stiff with a nice visible weave. The chassis also comes with a bag of many aluminium spacers and screws. They look to be fair quality, but for the screws especially we'll only really know when we try and fit them. The chassis also comes with a pair of damper mounts, which is nice. When ordering a chassis I found a load of other carbon bits too. So this is supposed to be a damper mount, quite different than the ones from the chassis kits, but it might end up working better. We'll just have to wait and see how it all ends up fitting. Next is I think some sort of brace, which also has a carbon fibre spacer that looks a lot like the one in the chassis kit. I think there's going to be a lot of trial and error to make a working car. Here's another brace, which looks familiar from when I built the first XV01, but of course the stock parts would have been plastic. This one has the steering link again, near enough the same as the one in the chassis kit, but it also has another small carbon fibre part. I think this bit simply goes over the foam front bumper, so mostly for appearance, but I thought we might as well try and make everything possible carbon fibre. Here's another damper mount, different again from the other ones. This one's really rather nice though. It's super thick and really neatly machined. As long as it fits as well as it looks, it should be a good one. And lastly, we've got some sort of motor mount bracket. I think its main use is to add a 40mm fan over the motor. It's probably mostly for appearance though. Also, it's the only part that has a brand attached to it, even if it's a bit generic. So there we go. I didn't really plan which parts to get, I just ordered all the carbon parts that came up on AliExpress. Other than the chassis kit, they're also very cheap, so it wasn't worth spending the time trying to work out what's going to work beforehand. The only thing that's missing from all this is any sort of instructions. There's a couple of pictures on the store pages, but that's really all you get. I think this build is going to be a bit of a puzzle, working out where everything goes. Should be fun though. We still need a servo, radio, motor and ESC before we get stuck in, but it is nearly ready for the build table. Okay, right, so that's this week's RC section. Now for the health update. So if you watched the last video, you might have known I suddenly lost most of the sight in my right eye. I went to the hospital, had some tests, got some eye drops and everything seemed to be getting better quite nicely. Well, last Monday I went for the follow-up, which seemed to go well. My eye is pretty much back up to speed. I just had to do a couple more blood tests and a water sample on the way out. Since that didn't take too long, I then went out for lunch with a friend, which was very good. Then, just as we were leaving the restaurant, I got a phone call from the eye doctor. She said quite a few things about various things in my results that were high, and I should go to the emergency department as quickly as possible, which isn't a great thing to hear over the phone. Once I got there and hit triage, they did my blood pressure, which was 185/99, with a pulse of 120, which was a little bit high. Then they did my glucose level, which was 27, again a little higher than it should be. Next I went to a separate waiting area where they fitted a cannula and took more blood. Then off to a bed. Now bear in mind I felt perfectly fine, and if it wasn't for the machine showing my BP and glucose I wouldn't have known I had anything wrong. So I was a bit miffed when I had to put on a hospital gown and lie in a bed. Over the next few hours I had people coming in asking if I felt nauseous or dizzy, telling me not to get out of bed. Meanwhile, I still felt fine. I was given some insulin, which brought my glucose levels down a bit. My BP had also come down a little, along with my pulse, but they were still pretty high. In the end, a few hours later, I was discharged with a referral to a diabetic clinic. Apparently, they would have kept me in, but since I was feeling okay, they let me go with a list of warning signs to look out for, with instructions to call 999. The next day I got a call from the diabetic clinic asking me to come in. They asked me some questions and told me the obvious at this point: I'm diabetic. And until the results come in, I'm being treated as a type 1 with insulin. Over the next couple of hours they went through quite a lot of information, gave me a type 1 starter pack with sharps, glucose meter, booklets and 4 pens of insulin. I also got a patch stuck to my arm that sends glucose levels to my phone and then to the hospital to help with the dosages. Right now it's obviously not right, I should be in the green zone at the bottom, but I'm sure we'll get a handle on that before long. So in less than a week I've gone from thinking I got an eye infection or something to having diabetes and having to inject myself 5 times a day. Plus there's the blood pressure to look at, but that's going to be another referral. And that's about it so far. All I can really say is thank for the NHS. Hopefully we'll be back to some full RC videos soon, but I won't promise next week, as to be honest at this point I'm not really sure what's going to happen next. Anyway, thanks for watching and listening. It's always greatly appreciated, as are the comments. So as always, like if you like, subscribe if you haven't, and leave a comment if there's something on your mind. Bye guys!